We all experience challenging and difficult situations in life. In the face of these complexities, it is not always clear how to respond, what to do, or what to avoid. It's easy to get stuck in these moments and stop moving forward in life. Wholeness with Naomi is a program that explores our experiences with such encounters and provides tools and strategies that can enable anyone facing these hardships to continue walking their path in life. We can't wait to meet you on this journey. Tune in, your life is about to change for the better. Welcome to our program, Wholeness with Naomi, where we talk about difficult and sometimes different situations that we may find ourselves in. More importantly, we talk about the tools that you can use as you navigate in these different and difficult paths. Today on the show, we're going to be exploring the subject of single parenting. And joining us on the show is Mr. Sifanele Dlamini. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Naomi.
Yes, do take us through. Do share with us what happened for you to become a single parent.
Okay, well, it wasn't really planned, but it was by natural design. I lost my wife 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was a post-delivery, when she just given birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the baby was about a month to be exact,
Mm-hmm.
From the day she was born to when she passed on. So it was one of those where you've got a plan in life and then suddenly there's a sudden interjection to life. So
Okay.
That's how I became a single parent, and now I was faced with 3 kids that I needed to raise.
Okay. I'm sorry for your loss. So you find yourself in the space where death has happened. You have 2 children who are older, and there's a month baby, and all of them have to be taken care of.
Yes.
How was that for you?
I think for me, it's one of those things where we always wanted to be open with each other, with Mandy, and we would discuss almost everything. So I would like to think. We would discuss what would happen if one of us were to pass away, if anything was to happen to any one of us.
Remember those conversations as well.
We would discuss what we needed to do. But for me, I think the drive as well was, I didn't grow up with my dad.
Okay.
I was mainly raised by my grandparents, my grandfather, my grandmother. So one of the things I purposed in life was I was always going to be there for my children.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what it will cost me. I was always going to be there and make sure they have the best of life that maybe I didn't have when I was growing up without a father. My mother was there, but she was a teacher in the rural areas. So mainly I grew up with my grandparents. So that was the thrust for me. And I remember when we had a discussion with Mandy, if anything was to happen to one of us, I remember one of the things I said, I used to joke and say, you can always remarry, and she would say, I don't want you to remarry. But I think deep down she knew that I had that heart for the kids. It's quite interesting that even when the kids were growing up, I always share with people that one of the things that I used to do the night shifts.
Okay. What was that?
When Mandy gave birth, there's the times at night when the baby wakes up, and for some reason, when the babies wake up, I could hear the baby before Mandy could hear the babies. Even if they were in the other room, I would hear that the baby's awake, and I would just jump, change the baby, wake up, change the diaper, clean up the baby, wake up Mandy, here's the baby, feed the baby. She feeds the baby, she goes back to sleep. Take the baby, burp the baby, put the baby down. Maybe sometimes the baby does a poo again, then you have to change the baby again, put the baby in bed.
So in this moment when your wife passed away, you were now faced with 3 children that needed to be taken care of. And for yourself in that place, you also were grieving. How was that like for you?
It's a very interesting period and a very interesting time, because it was, I always say that when something like that happens, it's like you've got a partner and you've got someone, I always call it a partner in crime that you're walking with in life. And then suddenly there's a sudden interjection. You've got these dreams, you've got those plans, and there's a sudden interjection. And not only that, for me, I had waited for 30 years to find the love of my life. So it's not just that it's something that just happens and you're like, okay, we talked about it, we were prepared for it, or we discussed it. You're never prepared for it. You're never ready for it. So for me, it was an interjection to life, to the plans we had, to the dreams we had. For me, and I always say it was like my heart was shattered into a million pieces that I always try and think, will they ever be put together again? But I believe God can do it. So that, I think there was first, the important thing that I realized was that I needed to heal first. If I was going to be ready to be there for the kids and to help them along in this journey, which is going to be a lifelong journey, really, I needed to first heal myself.
Okay.
And then, because if I wasn't healed, there was no way I was going to be there for the kids.
Okay.
You know?
What did healing look like for you? Were there any steps that you took for you to walk in the healing journey? What did it look like?
Hey, it was crazy. You know, people grieve in different ways. And one of the things that I learned in that journey is that you grieve in the way that works for you. There's no formula to it. But there are certain things that I intentionally did to do. Number one was to confront with the reality that this person was no longer around. Number two was to get involved in church programs that deal with grief. Like we've got a program called Grief Share. I had to intentionally, you know, it's one of those where you hear about it being announced in church and you think, it's a program. But you don't realize that you need that. You know, you need to intentionally then say, okay, I'm grieving. I need to deal with what I'm going through and face it head on and give it as much time as possible, you know, to deal with it. So I had to do Grief Share. I had to go online, look for people who have gone through similar kind of things. And, you know, there's always this woman I make a reference to who helped me understand what grief was. Okay. You know, she was saying in 1 year she went through a period where she had a miscarriage. Her husband, diagnosed with cancer, dies 2 months later. And then towards the end of the same year, her dad passes away. So she's had 3 people that die in her life. And when the husband dies, they've got kids. So she was talking about a blended family where her new husband, you know, has brought kids. And she was saying, you don't erase the memory of the loved one, but you keep it alive for the sake of the kids. And it's important to realize that you don't move on in grief, you move with grief. You know, you learn to manage it, you learn to live with it. It's not something that you can switch off like a light,
That's
wake
true.
up and say,
That's true.
no, that person is gone, so it's off and we forget. And sometimes she explained it very well. You don't move on, you move forward with the grief. Yeah.
Thank you for that sharing. You know, I think there are also misconceptions within our society where we talk about fathers especially raising children. And one of them, you know, it's a father is not able to actually raise his children well in the event of death, in the event of separation or divorce. How was that experience for you, Sif? And how does that, I would like to put it as a myth and a misconception. How would you respond to that?
I think for me, one of the things is we intentionally decided how we're going to parent our children.
Okay.
And what we were going to do. I mean, I think we attended over 5 parenting courses before we had any kids.
That's being intentional.
Yeah.
That's being
so we were intentional about how we're going to parent the kids. We're intentional how we're going to raise the children. We're intentional. One of the things that I value is we agreed that we're always going to be honest with the kids. No matter how difficult the truth was, we're always going to be honest with the kids. And that helped in terms of dealing with grief even with the kids, you know, because Bushe then was 5, turning 6 when Mandy passed. And one of the things that I intentionally did was to go with her through the process of her mom passing away. You know, Kudara, when we were growing up, you would be told the parent went away. But one of the things...
There's no explanation.
There's no explanation. You're told she's gone away. And you're wondering, are they coming back? When Mandy passed and we're at the hospital, one of the things I said, you know, I was asked, do you want us to tell Bushe? I said, I'll go and tell her myself. I want to tell her myself. I want me to be the one that tells her the truth.
Do join me as we continue on this discussion. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. How did people take it when they saw you raising 3 children and with a 1-month baby there? How was that experience like for you?
It's a crazy kind of experience. But, one of the things that I'm very grateful for, and one of the things that I was intentional about, and we were intentional about, was the people that we marry. I remember when we were at our dating phase and I was saying to you, do you realize that when you marry me, you're not just marrying me, you're marrying my family, you're marrying my mom, you're marrying my dad, you're marrying my grandparents, you're marrying the people that have had an influence in my life. So I don't live in a vacuum, I live with people. And she acknowledged that, and I also understood that when I get married, I'm getting married into her family. So one of the things that I was very intentional about was to build relationships with her family, not just my family, but her family as well, intentionally built. And one of the things that is that I have a very good relationship with my mother-in-law. So when all this happened, family was very, very important, played a very pivotal role, because I always say I would have lost my mind if family wasn't around. So I made a decision to say I'll take care of the 2 elderly kids. And my mother-in-law was going to take the baby to stay with the baby until, she was able to join the other 2. So family was very important at that juncture. And just having church people around as well was very pivotal because, we had intentionally made church friends who would get involved in our lives, get involved in each other kids' lives, and I don't know whether the women had planned it around in our lives, but they all decided to almost get pregnant at the same time. So we almost have kids that are of the same age group. So when we're dealing with things, we're dealing with them as a group. And friends have also helped in that regard. Just recently we were discussing with some of my friends, Buhle is turning 13. They're saying, you've got a high schooler now. How do you deal with a high schooler? You're a single parent, you're dealing with a high schooler. How do you deal with that? And we share notes. One would say, I manage the way that she's on the devices, these days about gadgets and whatever. I manage the gadgets. And one of the things I said is, guys, one of the things that you need to realize is that you don't just disciple your daughter, you just don't raise your daughter. Now you have to disciple her and her friends.
Because her friends have influence.
Because her friends have an influence on your child. So you have to intentionally know who the friends are. The friends must be free to come to your house. And you must be free. And you must also know the friends' parents. So that you understand the values that they are imparting to their child. And so that's been very important in terms of sharing notes with friends, sharing notes, even elderly folk, because I like to befriend elderly folk to find out, hey, when your daughter turned 13, what were the things that were challenging? And they'll tell you, there's these things that you watch out for, this is what, and of course, you're now dealing with a different generation, but the principle is the same.
The principle remains the same.
The principle remains the same. So for me, family, the church, friends, are very important.
I'm interested in finding out, Mr. Dlamini, how the challenges rather that you faced in this journey that you found yourself in.
Well, there's a number of challenges, but the one that straight away comes to mind was the conversation. One of the things that I've intentionally done is that the kids are free to come and speak to me about anything.
Okay.
That's what we've agreed.
How did you do that? I know your eldest is a daughter. How did you do that?
One of the things that I do is, like I said, it all begins by instilling the principle of truth.
Okay.
Speaking to your kids about anything and everything and telling them the truth. And where you don't know, you don't know. Where you know, you know. So I cultivated that so that the kids can actually come and say anything or ask anything. So I remember one of the things that, that you don't realize when these things happen was, I remember Buhle should have been about 7, 8, thereabout. And she says to me, so I was busy going about life. And then she says to me, Dad, do you realize that you are raising a girl?
Okay.
I'm like, okay. Says to me, as a girl, I need to do my hair, I need to do my nails. So you need to realize I need those things in my life. I'm not a guy, where I just cut my hair and, it solves everything.
She's 7.
Yeah.
She has thought about all this, okay?
She says to me, and then I said, oh. And then she says, so I realized there and then that, there was also going to be some need for intentional parenting a girl, not just working it as, I always say to myself, I'm a father-mother because, I have to play the role of a mother, I have to play the role of a father. So I then realized it was important to take it to the salon on a 2-week basis. She wanted to do her hair every 2 weeks, for school and stuff like that. And thank God, one of the things I used to do when Mandy was alive was take her to the salon.
Okay.
So I already had a relationship with the lady who did her hair. And so she would phone me and say, it's almost 2 weeks, Buhle needs to get her hair done. So, Buhle now needs this, And I remember, I alluded to family being very important. When kids are maturing faster. And so it was now time to talk about her becoming a woman. Yeah. So having family around was important, but more so, me also talking to her about it. I didn't go in detail, but the grandmothers and the aunts did the detail. But I did tell her, you're becoming a woman. There's certain things that you can't do anymore because you're not a baby anymore. We went through that. So it's those challenges where you now have to be intentional. You have to be intentionally be a mother and intentionally be a father. With Likwa, it wasn't as difficult. He's a guy, but he's also introverted. And then with Lulu, it hasn't been that difficult because she's still a baby. But I know we'll get there. But also, one of the challenges was intentionally going through grief with the kids. Because one of the things that we do on a regular basis that I would ask the kids was, do you miss mom? And one of the things that touched me the most was when I was having this conversation with Likwa, and Likwa says to me, Dad, I wish mommy would come down from heaven just one more time. So we just play together. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, And he was like 5. He says to me, I just wish she would come down just for one day, just for 2 hours. He wasn't asking for it too long. He said, I just need 2 hours. She just comes down and we just play together one more time. And, and then I realized it's something that we're going to have to go through it for the rest of our lives. It's because they used to dance. Men used to love dancing with Likwa. So Likwa says to me, Dad, I wish you would just come for 2 hours. And we just play and we dance. And I was thinking to myself, so their bodies might be little, but these are like adults. They are going through, this thing is real for them. So I need to be there as a father and be intentionally there to talk about grief with them. And one of the things I realized, it's not going to be something that we talk about it now and think it's over. It could be something that Buhle at 18 might decide, she's going to go through grief because she's an 18-year-old who doesn't have a mom. And she's seeing other kids who have their moms. And I know with Lulu, we're going to have to go through the same, because she was asking me recently, there's a question she asked me about, what was mom like? She was 1 month, so she doesn't remember a lot. So I try and show them pictures. Mandy loved to take a lot of pictures, so I try and show them pictures, try and show them the things we've done. I've tried to maintain the relationships that we had with Mandy, like Christian Medical Fellowship, the people that we've hung around with, the people that we used to hang around. I've tried to maintain that so that they still feel the community that their mother was in, the community that we were in when we were together with their mom. So that's that's one of the challenges. And then, of course, there's other issues where now we need to adjust ourselves financially. We need to adjust ourselves. One of the crazy decisions I had to make was, guys, it's okay. I'm here, in Harare, and I'm managing being with you. But I think we also need to move to the broader community, because bulk of the family was in Bulawayo, and I felt better family structure would be in Bulawayo, in the sense that, for example, for Buhle, she would be able to be with her aunts. And I think she talks more to her aunts, because there's certain things that I think she feels she can open with her aunts than she can with me, although she basically says anything to me. But, there's certain things that she goes and discusses with them. But generally, most of the stuff, she comes to me and she tells me as it is and what's going on. Yeah.
That was a bit deep for me as well, I must say. The journey that you walked, where your wife had passed on and you were now raising children, and the questions that they were asking. But what's important in coming out is you allowed everyone in the family to be able to grieve with you, and coming together in a community back where you intentionally chose to say, Harare is good, but does it serve the interest of the children and the family? What makes sense now in light of what has happened? And you relocated to Bulawayo, where most of the family was. And that was the environment that enabled you to be able to raise your children, and is actually raising your children quite well. Thank you so much for that sharing. Viewers, let's take a short break to join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Before we went on a short break, Mr. Dlamini was sharing with us his life journey. He was sharing about how the community around him, which was the family, came through. I want to understand, Mr. Dlamini, what are some of the things that helped you on this journey?
I think besides family, church, it was just making a resolve to be intentional about how I was going to parent, how I was going to be there for the kids, how it's been a cost. We're joking over when we were having Christmas dinner in Harare this past Christmas, where one of our family friends comes and says, "Shoo, you've sacrificed a lot." Some men just walk away and decide to do, they take the kids to the grandparents and they just forget about it. But you've stood there and you've sacrificed. And yeah, it's been a sacrifice, that's the truth. But for me, it's been just deciding to be intentional and say, I'm going to parent my kids. I'm going to be there for my kids. Because one of the things, that people don't, maybe, for me, maybe it was an experience that I was having, was when I lost Mandy, I actually didn't care about life anymore.
Okay.
If there was any time that I was ready to go, it was like, and I think if the kids were not there, if God had decided to call me, I wouldn't have mind, just going. Because for me, life had just ended for me. Yeah, life had stopped, life had ended for me. And it's been a process. Like I said, putting myself back together, it's been a process. It's been a journey, journey talking to God. I've learned that you can be honest with God. When you are angry about something, you can talk to God about it. Say, Lord, I'm actually upset. I'm angry about what's happened. I'm broken. You begin to understand David when he's writing his Psalms and he's upset at God, and he's and when he says, "Why are you downcast, O my soul?" you begin to understand those things. David was not just talking from an element of no experience, but he was talking from a broken heart.
Viewers, single parenthood is something that sometimes you may find yourself walking that journey. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's not by choice. Life has happened, situations, circumstances have changed around you, and you're having to raise children on your own. Mrs. Fanele Dlamini, he's a father. He's raising both his daughters and his sons well. Some of the things that he spoke about are very pivotal in helping even yourself as you walk in that journey. He spoke about your faith and being grounded in the Lord. He spoke about the community. Hama Zatinazo. Those people, they help us as we go through difficult situations, and they come together to even give life much more meaning. He spoke about the community, which was church. He spoke about intention and raising children. Use some of the tools and things that he was sharing on to help you on this journey. Do join me in the next episode. In the meantime, continue in wholeness. Thank you.